experience where we all are listening to each other and using different aspects of our capacities. So if you would all just turn off your cameras so that we can all just listen to each other. That would be great. So how's everybody doing?
Fantastic.
Doing
Very
great.
good.
Yeah? Sounds like you are all doing quite well.
Yes.
I just, if you give me 1 second here. Just 1 second. So, thank you all for coming in and for joining. And as I said before, if you could all just mute your cameras, and this is going to be an exercise on just listening to each other, because I think that it's a practice that we're losing in many ways, because we are becoming so visually oriented with all the media that's occurring. So I wanted to just give ourselves the practice of just listening to one another during this session. And I want to start out with actually a moment of silence, and just so that we can come into the space and really collect ourselves and know where we are and know the intention of why we're here. So let's just take 1 minute of silence so that we can begin. Again, for all of you who just joined, if you would be kind enough to just mute your cameras so that we're just listening to one another and the images are no longer active. Thank you so much. So one of the resources that I want to be sort of really aware in our consciousness, bring to awareness in our consciousness, is this idea of active listening. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with active listening, but it's a type of listening where you are taking in information and really activating your own aspect of understanding what's being said. And the reason why that's important, because a lot of misunderstandings, a lot of conflict is created when we actually do not take the time to be present and actually listen and take the time to understand each other. So it's important for us to listen with the intention to understand each other, so that when we come together, there's a transference of information that is clear and correct. So does anybody have any questions regarding active listening? For those of you who also want to speak up, basically all you need to do is unmute your microphone and you will have the capacity to unmute and speak. when you have a question. The idea here is for us to come together to have a dialogue and to discuss whatever's happening at the moment, because it is a very interesting time in history, and we want to exchange information in a beautiful way so that we can actually create capacity to overcome anything that we might be facing at the moment. And right now I'm going to introduce an idea called traffic control. And traffic control is pretty basic. It is the idea that you take intervals throughout the entire day and you create a complete stop. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you create a complete stop in terms of motion. It's really just about shifting the focus of your awareness. So you go inward, you turn your mind instead of going outward, you turn it inward, and you're paying attention to what's actually inside of you, your thoughts, your feelings, and also paying attention to where you're at in the present moment. So it's an awareness of being present in the moment and understanding your condition. And you do this in order to become fully aware of the moment so that you can be your best in every moment. So remind yourself, I can only experience what I give myself permission to think, feel, do, or be. Many times we engage in activity and engage in conversation and engage, but a lot of times we don't give ourselves permission to actually participate, to fully engage. We're just there. And in this particular gathering, I would like to engage you all to participate, because in order to fully benefit, one needs to participate. And so I hope that all of you, that we can create the environment to hold trust and also respect for one another, so that there will be no judgment in terms, it's okay to disagree and to hold each other's space with respect, deep respect and kindness. So let's agree to disagree, but let's agree to have a beautiful time together. And so traffic control is we stop. So we're gonna do that right now. I'm gonna stop and I'm gonna go inward. So I invite you to go inward into yourself and just take inventory of your thoughts. Not just the thought, but also the quality of your thought, the quality of your feelings, and how's your body feeling? Is it moving around? Does it feel calm? Does it feel agitated? Does it feel sweet? So we're going to take these little intervals from time to time during this gathering, and we're just going to stop, check in, and then we're going to learn a process by which to, whenever we are noticing that there are conditions that are not so favorable for ourselves in terms of the way we're thinking, the way we're feeling, or the way we're acting, and we're going to learn some techniques to shift them. Okay? So we're going to start to increase the capacity for us to be able to shift our awareness, shift our feelings, shift our thoughts, and shift our actions. Okay? And at any given time that you may have a question, or you may feel a little confused and you need clarification, please feel free to speak up, because this is in a form of dialogue, and we want to make sure that everybody is on the same page in terms of understanding the concepts, and it's always okay to ask a question. So these times that we're in are, in many ways, they are creating newness, and in many ways we are remaining the same, right? It's really difficult to change our personalities and the way we've been, our habits. Those things take a lot of time, and they take more than just one event like this to shift us. And so this event is, or the condition that we're in at the moment, is asking us really, who am I being? And going deeply into that question of who am I being in my thinking, in my feeling, and in my actions. And it's asking us, what do I notice that can be strengthened? And the things that are showing us that we may need strength and empowerment in certain areas of ourselves is fear, worries, preoccupation with the future, what's going to happen tomorrow, or preoccupation with the past. I wish it was just the way it was. So we're going to actually look and explore in order to come to a place of healing, and also having the capacity to move forward in a positive, constructive way. We need to understand where we are at the moment. Healing does not occur, and empowerment doesn't occur until we understand who we're being, so that we can then build little building blocks from there. And it's really important for us to become architects of ourselves. So we're being called to create. And before, as I said, you can only create what you give yourself permission to do. So without your permission, I can be, that being cannot occur. So I invite you all to create the dynamic in your mind at the moment, to begin that conversation of allowing, give yourself permission to be whatever you need to be and become, in order to facilitate easy transition into something unknown. And instead of participating with fear and waste thoughts, we are going to participate with creativity and inner power. One of the things that is really amazing, sometimes we take so much for granted, and I think that this period of stopping us, of really sort of stopping the flow of what we normally do, has opened our eyes to many things that we take for granted, like the availability of food, availability of clean water, availability of resources. And a lot of that stems from the way we constructed what is called belief systems. And belief systems have created a sense of what is real and what is false for us. And so we base our lives, we base our thinking, we base our feeling, and we base our actions based on these systems of beliefs that we've accumulated from the day that we were born. And so part of the understanding that we need to come to in terms of this is to be fearless, to face the idea that everything we think we know or have come to accept as a constant is a belief system susceptible to change. The only constant in life is change. Can anybody give me an idea of what you understand to be a belief system? Anyone? belief system can be a religious understanding. It can be a personal understanding. I am. It can be based on your gender. It can be based on your nationality. It can be based on your family. It can be based on your understanding of the world. Anyone? A belief system.
Or the culture? Culture?
Or the culture, yeah. Or even the times, right? Sometimes we have created belief systems based on the time.
Society, social company.
Yeah, can you give me an example of one of your belief systems?
People listen to you on, sorry. No, go ahead. Respect older people despite of whatever they are saying. You have to respect and, you know,
yeah,
bend. If you are younger, then you listen to the older people.
Aha, okay. So those are two belief systems, right? One is a belief system that we respect all people regardless of what they're saying, right? Because it's their perspective. And the other one is younger people should respect older people. That's a belief system, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Anyone else?
And people will listen to you if you say it firmly.
People will listen to you if you say it firmly, yes. The more strict sounding you sound, the more formidable the idea, right? What else?
And we have to follow the social norm to be acceptable by everyone else.
Yes, we have to follow the acceptable norm to be accepted by everyone else. So these are all ideas, right? And these ideas, we've accumulated all these different ideas. And so a lot of times it becomes very confusing as evidence from the outside world, very confusing because yes, Rakshan. Hello? So when you have a question, please feel free to just unmute your microphone and speak up so that we can hear you if you have a question. So yes, these belief systems actually are really interesting because they sometimes either create flow or they absolutely stop the flow. And we have to pay attention to these little signals. So we're going to learn a lot about how different belief systems, and we're going to focus on two different belief systems that actually create reality for us. And we're going to just explore these two ideas. Does anybody have any questions or anything to add regarding belief systems?
Like people, if people say something, they hurt me. That's the belief system too, right?
Well, can you repeat that again?
If someone says something hurtful, we blame the other people, you know.
Yeah, so the belief system
we blame
there
that person.
Yeah, so the belief system there would be anybody who says anything harmful for me is not good, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we create these belief systems in order to create a position in relationship to what's happening, a position in relationship to an idea, a position in relationship to a feeling. So we create a lot. We're super creative beings. And we're going to explore how we can actually use our creativity in a positive way as opposed to creating restriction. So right now, what's happened in society, in lots of societies, what's happening is creativity is being utilized in order to create limitation. So we as a creative beings are being, the idea is to limit our creative possibility, our engagement of happiness based on the fact that we're mostly in four walls. But is that possible? So we're going to explore all these ideas of limitation, freedom, How can we burst out of any type of limitation when we understand who we are, what our capacity is, and then what we can do about it? So the two dynamics, two belief systems, and they're based on, it's basically two open systems, right? Open systems, they have the ability to take in information and then to once it processes that information internally and then puts out some kind of response to the outer world. Okay, so there's a system that operates singularly, but it accepts information from the outside world, and then also it puts out information from internal outwardly. And the two systems we're going to explore here is body consciousness and soul consciousness. Okay, they're two very distinct experiences. And both of them are actually, these two systems are interrelated, but when we perceive them as two separate systems and we operate out of one or the other, what happens is imbalance occurs because they actually are meant to work together. So we are body conscious. Can anybody read that? Body consciousness.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Body consciousness means me, myself, and think about other people. And always I believe soul lies in the body, stays in the body. So we have to be body conscious also.
Yes, indeed. As we said, yeah, there are two ideas that seem like they're opposite of each other, but actually when they work together, something magical happens. Right? So, but when we separate them, as most of us and as many of us do, and many of society does too, we begin to actually create further limitations. It's like any system that when you begin to divide it into parts, it becomes confused, and that's what happens. So body consciousness, a system in which environment, the physical world, creates and molds experience. My life is at the whim of external factors. So when we're solely in the consciousness of I am this body, then what happens is that every single time something changes in the outer world, I change with it because I don't yet understand fully who I am, right? Because I'm associated solely with the body. And then in soul consciousness is a system of constant factors which result in a consistent response to external variables. So what that's saying is my life is molded according to my spiritual nature. So it says that I understand what's inside of me, what I am, my structure, my resources. And so I respond to the outer stimuli, to those things that are coming at me from the world. I respond from that place of knowing, from that place of understanding all my internal resources. Therefore, I don't respond nor am I shifted according to the external influence. I actually have the capacity to, in fact, shift the outer world, right? So to two different mechanics, but what we'll learn is that these two different open systems actually can work together very effectively. And when they do, again, magic happens. So we're going to learn about that. The first part is we're going to look at soul consciousness. And what soul consciousness, first is we're going to be looking at body consciousness. And body consciousness operates from keeping the body alive is at the center. So it's really important. Can anybody tell me if this society as we know it in this particular moment is operating within body consciousness? And what are some of the signs that you have experienced in this particular moment that indicate that?
With
Body
COVID-19 is we are all wearing mask, and that is body consciousness. Wearing clothes is a body wearing clothes is a body consciousness.
Yeah.
Respecting other is a body consciousness.
Yeah.
Fear, anger.
Yeah. What else? How about you personally? What are you experiencing personally? Is there anything that this image calls out to you? Have any of you experienced any worry? Any resistance? Any blame? Have you been blaming or caused blame? Have you been feeling fear?
No.
Have you been feeling judgment? So personally and then collectively, how we're operating can also be very different, right? Because if we have built a strong inner system and understanding of ourselves, then it's going to be very difficult for the external world to motivate change internally. Does that make sense to everyone?
Could you repeat the last part, please?
Yeah, so
Thank you.
so when you know internally who you are and your resources, it's going to be very difficult for external factors, the environment, the outer influence, to actually shift your condition.
Oh, okay.
Right?
I got
So
it. Yeah, I got it.
you're stable. And
Right.
because you're stable, only truths can come into your resource. Meaning you will be able to decipher, this is true, this is false. Okay? And that's capacity that's built through time, through different practices. And we're going to explore that too. So in body consciousness, life is a competition for survival driven by a variety of value systems. And as we discussed, there's different value systems. First, there's value systems about myself, I am. And then there's value systems related to I am what to my family, and how should I behave, how should I be, how should I feel, right? And then there's belief systems related to the outer world. But the main consciousness behind soul consciousness, behind body consciousness, is I must survive. And when you work out of survival mode, all these aspects just arise. You become much more aware of time. The fact that this body has a limited time. It has a beginning, it's born, it has a life, and then it has an end. And so you become actually much more connected to these ideas, and you start operating off of that, and it starts to create, so it's kind of like a domino effect. The minute you begin to to invite fear and allow it to stay within you, it creates a domino effect. And then it starts to introduce different ideas, the idea of weakness, the idea of I must control my environment, right? There's so much control happening right now because we're trying to control something that's natural, like a virus. And is that possible? But because fear is there, we are engaging with it in that way. So we also become much more, sometimes fear can engage a sense of anger. Why am I here? Why am I in this position? So all these things begin to happen. Can anybody, I'm going to take this time actually to have you, do you all have a piece of paper, something to write with?
Yeah.
Because I'm going to ask you all to write 3 situations in which you feel either frustrated, confused, unclear, where you are needing to be given a little bit more power. So 3 situations in your life, in your present moment, that you need a little bit of empowerment with. So write them down in the way you want, whether it be thoughts, feelings, or physical situations that you find yourself. And we're going to work with these situations in order to create a sense of real, of practical. Because ideas are useless until they're actually put into practice in a practical way. So one of the easiest ways of understanding whether you individually is in body consciousness, just ask yourself, am I feeling like I need something? Am I wanting to take as opposed to give? Am I reacting as opposed to responding? So am I reacting to the situation? So when we react, we're already outside of ourselves, outside of our nature. When we want to take because of fear of not having, is because we're not absolutely clear about the abundance that exists within us in terms of capacity and also natural resources. And the idea of I need is also the lack of understanding that I am whole, always whole. And at no given time am I ever lacking anything that I am required to have in order to be myself. And that's really a very, very large idea, to never be lacking anything that I require to be myself. So the idea I never am missing anything within myself because it's always there. And all I have to do is open the door and access it. So all I have to do is open a door and access it because it's there. And we're going to learn what's actually there, right? Because I think that a lot of times fear, confusion, all these experiences come because we don't know fully what's there. Because it's been it's a unclear, uncertain, when we come to ideas of spirituality and other resources of spirit, it becomes very ambiguous. And a lot of times phrases like, it's not knowable, it's not meant to be known. And with this practice, it's like everything under the sun is to be known. The more I know, the more knowledgeful I am, the better it is for me to understand not only myself, but my position in the universe. Any questions? So it's times like this, as I said before, where belief systems and all these ideas as to all this, think about like Santa Claus, or think about Santa Claus and his bag of toys. And we all of us have a bag of toys and their belief systems and their ideas, right? And we carry them around with us. And we carry them around with us every single moment. And we are creating action, we're creating activity, we're creating feeling, we're creating vibration every single day based on this bag of goodies. And how often have we actually looked into the bag to understand fully what that bag really holds and whether we need to carry it around anymore? Because a lot of these ideas, a lot of these belief systems, as we grow through time and space, actually hold limitations and that create our suffering and pain. So one of the big questions today that I would be asking everyone is to contemplate, am I willing to let go of suffering and pain? And then another part of the question is, will you give yourself permission to let go of suffering and pain if it was in your control to do so? So those are really important. One is you must give yourself permission to experience anything, right? Any thought, any feeling, any action. And the other is to really, once you understand that you've given yourself permission, do you have the determination, the commitment to letting that suffering and pain go? And these are deep questions because a lot of times we go up and down in our commitment. So it's times like this that are calling us to really become clear as how deep of a commitment are we to letting go of limitation and really embracing full activation of who we really are. And the only way to do that is to understand. So from this visual that does everybody have the capacity to see the image I'm sharing?
No.
No, I will share some of the ideas very briefly, and then I'm going to ask you to think of which of these words is touching you in a way that is creating an imagination or a connection to it. Okay? So can you let go of your identity, relationships, religion, beliefs, systems, education, experience, culture, age, gender, political affiliation? Political affiliation right now is really interesting because it's something that is completely dividing worlds. Because just because somebody said X, then a huge number of people will no longer even be willing, they won't be willing to listen to the possibility that whatever they may be saying has some validity. So we sometimes, because of these labels, because of these affiliations, we create the impossibility to actually take or exercise listening, exercise an open mind, an open heart, simply because they belong to this group or that group, right? So
Correct.
breaking out of that limitation. So breaking away from even political affiliation. I am no longer X, but I am a part of all of the parties.
Correct.
Letting go of judgments.
Correct.
So, and also letting go of your past memories. So
Yes.
memories, negativity, resistance, the sense of I know. What do we know really? So little, right?
Correct.
When you look at the universe and the universe in from all of its levels, not only from what we can see, but when we begin to look at what we cannot see, but know that it exists, that it's there because we can feel it. We experience it in a way that we can't describe it fully. So I'll come back to the question. So based on these words, which of these words is touching you at the moment? Which one are you feeling connected to? Anyone?
I am peaceful soul.
Which one is it?
I am peaceful soul. That's the
Yeah, I'm a peaceful
connect.
soul. Is that what
Yeah.
you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, and have you built the capacity to be a peaceful soul in all situations?
Most of the time,
Most of the
I'm trying my best.
Yeah, yeah. So a lot of times that's what happens, right?
Right.
Expectations.
Expectations. How's expectations calling you?
You expect certain kind of behavior from your kids, you know.
Yeah, that's a big one. I think that when we look at relationships in terms of family, especially, we have been conditioned by our education, by the multi-generation of change, of exchanging ideas about how behavior and the right behavior, wrong behavior, in terms of looking at each other and the role we play, father to mother, children to parents, to grandparents. So all of these are, you know, they're really interesting. So one of the questions to ask is, how do these belief systems create limitations for my inability to listen, to shift, to change with ease, to
What kind
actually,
of question?
huh?
What kind of question you have to ask when you expect something from someone? What kind of question? How can you change that, convert that in your mind? What kind of exact thought you have to think to change that?
Yeah, so expectations are really beautiful things, because all they're showing, actually they're indicating, is something inside of us that needs to be strengthened. So when you have an expectation, what are you expecting somebody to give you is the question. So if your expectation is something of your children, what do you want your children to give you?
Actually, being a peaceful soul, I do not expect anything from my children because I believe God raised them very confidently. With God help, I raised them confidently,
Okay.
confident enough to live on this earth
Yeah.
with good means. So I'm not gonna expect anything.
Yeah.
Whatever they give me, I will take it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I share something?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so so this is how I learn. So yeah, I'm just sharing it. So if if it's right, take it. If not, leave it.
Yeah, of course. Yes.
So yeah, so I feel like living from a soul consciousness, it's not about us, correct? It's about giving. So for me, I give up my expectation. I allow people to do things they want so that they can be happy. If I expect people to do things my own way, they won't be happy, and that's not giving. It's about me, me, me. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
about receiving.
Yeah.
So if I look to receive all the time, I won't be happy. But
Yeah.
if I set my goal to just, okay, I'm here to give, so I'm just gonna allow people to do things the way they want so they can be happy, or say
Yeah.
say whatever, not whatever, but or just allow them to be themselves so that they can be happy. So and I I set that as my goal, and I feel like it works for me. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So
what do you
sometimes
think?
if you allow them to do everything and anything, then they can go on a bad path, you know?
I think that to me, I feel like there is a limitation. Yeah, I feel like if they start to get into like a wrong wrong group of people, maybe we can give them advice. Yes, try to steer them. Yeah, I think that's when we need to intervene. But when it comes down to like like they talk, we try to correct them to like tell them, okay, talk this way, sit this way, you know what I mean, eat this
Yeah.
food, because I feel like those are not necessary. So
Yeah.
just let them be themselves.
Yeah.
But I
There's
feel
a,
like
go
I
ahead.
feel like there is like a line that we draw. You know, there are times that we allow them to be who they are without any expectation, but there are times that we kind of like set a boundary. Okay, you know, you know, I know more, so I'm going to correct you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how
Yeah.
I
I
thought
feel.
There's a
I
certain
thought
level. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I thought question was what we accept from our kid. answer was, I think, drawn between what we should tell them.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it really comes down to two things: knowing and also trusting that all you can do, we can't really change anyone, right? Fully change anyone, because that's
No.
out of our control. And we'll learn a little bit more about what's in our control and what's out of our control. So
Yeah.
understanding what's in our control, what's out of control becomes very important. And in addition, accepting that I can only play my role to the best of my capacity. And that sometimes is, one is accepting whatever the person is choosing to be part of their life choice. And all I can do is be an incredible example of what I feel is right, so that just through the impact of my example, somebody can be inspired to shift. And that's as far as we can go in terms of relationships, is we must become the best people, the best individuals that we can be, so that through the experience of other people sort of understanding that what we are, just through the experiencing of our actions, of the way we think, the way we speak, they are inspired to become like us. So that's, there are many different modalities of processing, and we're going to explore that. And one of the main focuses is actually, how do we activate these qualities of acceptance, of respect? How are they actually, how are they part of our internal world already? So I'm gonna ask you all, just keep this question in your mind. Am I prepared to let go, to release the suffering and pain that's related to my limitations of some of my belief systems, that I just need to release out, let go out of my bag of tricks that I carry around with me? So keep that in mind. What belief systems no longer serve me? They are waste, and they limit me in my capacity to experience myself and also the world in beautiful ways. Now I'm gonna, let's just take one quick moment of silence and just keep the ideas, the first idea. So go inward, take notice of the quality of your thoughts again. Feel how the present conditions are causing on you, inner system. And this is very important. Accept the moment without the need to add or subtract from what's there. Simply witness without judgment, okay? So we're gonna just see what's there. So we'll take a moment to just go inward and see where we're at. Cultivating these moments of silence, even if they're just quick little moments, one little few seconds, even if they're just a minute. And they're very doable, except we've created a belief system that we can't stop time. So this is an exercise to understand that time is under our control. And that at any given time, when you need to refresh, you can gift yourself the time, because you're in control. So always being aware, I can gift some time to my becoming refreshed, to really nurturing myself that way. So always understand that it's always under your control to take time to stop and look inward, refresh, strengthen yourself. So one of the questions in these confusing times and in these things where just a lot of unknowns are present and a lot of unknowns are uncovering themselves as we go along is, how can I remain grounded and stable through these times? And that becomes really an important question for us to be able to answer. And I'm going to explore these ideas, and I'm going to take the advice of Nikolai Tesla. That, can anybody read that for us?
Okay, I'll read it. The day science begins to study non-physical phenomena, it will make more progress in 1 decade than in all the previous centuries of existence. To understand the true nature of the universe, one must think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration.
Yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to take Mr. Tesla's advice, and we're going to look at the dynamic of our being from that space. We're going to explore the dynamic of energy, frequency, and vibration, but also we're going to look at the dynamic of who we think we are outside of this physical body and explore the dimension of soul. So first, whenever we look at something, whenever we study something, we want to understand the form of it so that we can then touch it, feel it, maneuver it, mold it, reconstruct it, whatever it is that's required to do for us to have a relationship to it. And so the first aspect that I want to explore is the soul's form as a point of light energy. And the reason why this is important, that it's the aspect of light energy, is because much of science is actually pointing to the fact that brain waves, electromagnetic waves that are read and that are believed to come from the brain now are looking as if something else is driving those brain waves. And so we're going to look at a little bit of that. So wave particle duality, so dual nature of light. Wave particle duality theory, wave nature of light, explains that light can behave as an electromagnetic wave, whereas the particle nature of light explains that light consists of particles called photons. And so a lot of neuroscience, what neuroscience is doing right now, it's looking at what actually happens when a person's brain is considered the condition's brain dead. But why is it that it's still responding when it's stimulated by a question? The brain itself activates it. Brain mapping, when you look at an image of it, it actually maps out as if it was just totally normal. So something outside of the brain itself is actually stimulating this response. So the soul has the capacity to send waves to the brain, and then that electromagnetic field is then stimulated into the brain neurons, right? And we're going to explore that a little bit. So the soul as a light energy, how many of you have an idea or an understanding of this concept of soul? It might be life energy. It's been called many, many names.
Soul is a divine energy. It's not light energy. If it is not divine, then this world should not be livable.
Yeah. Okay.
So soul is a divine energy. It's not a light. It's a divine energy.
Okay. And anyone else?
It's a
Go ahead.
And that divineness is lying our bodies. So that's why we are body conscious.
Yeah. So we're going to explore that idea. Okay. We're going to explore. Go ahead.
Is it accepted by the scientists?
Is what accepted by?
The soul is a light energy.
Well, actually, one of the reasons why I brought this light energy, so light energy can be divine energy, right? When you look at a lot of the stories in which divinity has been described or proclaimed, in most cultures have described it as light, right?
Soul is so divine energy that can purifies the whole entire body system.
Yes, and
Our
we're
body, all bodies, small veins and nerve systems. It can be clean up by just doing body system. Focus on the forehead, and we can take some energy, pure and divine energy, and that can helps a lot.
Yeah, we're going to explore that actually. So all we're looking at right now is the soul's form. So it's a point of indestructible light. Okay?
Okay.
So that point of indestructible light it has interesting behaviors that are actually now being described by physics. And that idea, so when we are in meditation, one person can actually influence another person, because when you create a thought, that wave, okay, travels to the next person in a very short period of time. And so these are different capacities of the soul, and that's what we're going to explore, the different capacities of the way the soul expresses. And there's another science that has been, that explains that the idea that death is simply doesn't exist, because the consciousness, the soul consciousness, okay, is forever. It doesn't get destroyed when the body dies. And so science is coming together in terms of the ideas that formulate a lot of the spiritual sort of state of being. And that's really where we're going. We're going to look at the soul as an indestructible point of divine light that has the capacity not only to communicate with other souls, but also as a collective field, okay? When humanity as a collective field decides to move in a certain direction collectively, it creates a certain dynamic that then can change nature, can change the planet itself. And we're going to explore that. Does anybody have any question about that?
No.
So the first idea here is, and the only reason why I'm using quantum physics and a lot of this science is because these two areas that seem to be in opposite directions a lot of times, they didn't always come to merge in the same point. And right now in this particular time in history, these two things are merging. They're merging to such a degree where physicists are actually contemplating and relating the idea of consciousness as part of science and the way scientific formulation is occurring. So here's an idea, understanding the soul's journey. So in this particular image, it's called the cycle of consciousness, or the world cycle. And what it's describing is that the universe itself has a contained amount of energy, and the souls that come onto the planet go through a transition of perfection, and then they degrade and they come to another point. Okay, so you have the yellow with the full healthy tree, and that's the golden age. Then you have the silver part where it's it's silver age. And then you have the earthy reddish color with the autumn, and that is the copper age. And then you have the tree that has died, that's about to fall, and that's the stone age. and the Iron Age, sorry, the Iron Age. And in that little yellow, the little white part, it's called the Confluence Age. The Confluence Age actually is very important right now because there's a whole dynamic. The world is in this shift of consciousness. And you have those who are wanting to keep things just as they are, despite the fact that we're destroying the earth, the fact that there's so much inequality on the earth. And then there's others who are fighting for equality and for bringing together humanity and nature in full benefit. And so these two forces are actually looking to resolve, where do we go next? And this image actually shows that, yes, it may look dark, it may look like, wow, everything as we know it is about to end, but it also indicates that everything will shift to an incredible time. And I thought that that was really important to share, because a lot of times our consciousness, our focus becomes on the destruction and becomes so connected to the change as perceived as negative. But in fact, all of this, and what this is really calling us, is to really pay attention to what's going on inside of us. Where's the consciousness? What's the quality of my consciousness? So on both as an individual, and then also it's calling on humanity as a collective field, magnetic field, to shift its focus. So Max Planck, who is one of the originators of quantum physics, who was also a Nobel Prize winner, he said, I regard consciousness as a fundamental. I regard matter as a derivative from consciousness. Everything that we talk about, everything that we regard as reality postulates consciousness. And what he's saying is that consciousness, the state of consciousness, both on the individual and on the collective level, would determine the condition of the earth, the condition of our environment. So as we shift and we become clear as to who we are and what we want to be in the world, that consciousness will automatically shift the condition of our environment. And that's really fundamental here, is that as we purify our system, the environment will also purify along with it. But it's up to us to create that shift. And that's really important for us to understand. So the fundamental conclusion, can anybody read the second phrase there by R.C. Henry? Anyone?
I do not have it.
I can read it.
Okay, please.
Yeah. A fundamental conclusion of the new physics also acknowledges that the observer creates the reality. As observers, we are personally involved with the creation of our own reality. Physicists are being forced to admit that the universe is a mental construction.
Yeah. So basically what it's saying is that our consciousness is so powerful, and we are not giving it the kind of attention it requires. So our consciousness, our internal world is so powerful in the effect it has on the outer world, that if we only paid attention to it, we would create absolute shifts in the outer space. That's all it's saying, that as I change, the world changes. And that has been said many, many times. But can you actually give yourself permission to actually activate that reality? Can you give yourself permission to actually understand how powerful you are as an individual, and then also how powerful the collective of the human race is in terms of the consciousness we are collectively creating, and how that's going to propel into the next moment? Any questions?
No.
So become the master the mechanics of soul consciousness. And I think that this really becomes really important, because a lot of times when we think about our spirituality, we are ambiguous about what that means. And because the ambiguity, it doesn't allow us to actually ground ourselves completely into an understanding of how can I create power with my spiritual life, my spiritual way of thinking, my spiritual way of feeling, my spiritual way of acting, right? So we come to understand these facilities, and the reason why we want to understand them is as we understand a system, we can then fix the system whenever it goes wrong. So I need to understand it. So actually, I'm going to use this to go into, can somebody share one of their questions that is causing them conflict at the moment? And we're going to actually do a little activity. Would anybody be brave enough to share one of their, anyone?
Regarding what?
Remember I asked, can you please write 3 different situations where you might have a conflict or you're trying to come up with solutions?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so
Well, yeah,
I'm asking, would any of you share one of those aspects of conflict so we can actually take it through this process?
sure, yeah. Like for me, I want to change someone's behavior. It really, it really bothers me. And I've
Okay.
been trying to change their behavior for like years.
Uh-huh.
But I mean, she's not going to change. So, I try to, calm down. But, even though I'm calm on the outside, but my, how do you say, I feel very uncomfortable on the inside. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
how could I resolve that problem so that I won't be, disturbed by their behavior or yeah.
Yeah. So the first thing I say is, who's being disturbed in this situation?
Oh, me.
Okay. So yeah. So right now, what we do know and what we are certain is that you're the one who's being disturbed by the outer world, right?
Correct.
It doesn't matter who it is or what it is. You're the one who's being disturbed. So let's look at the person. Let's look at the individual. Let's look at the person who's actually being affected. So I am being affected. Now, the next question is, why am I being affected? Right? So I have certain expectations of somebody's behavior. Something that I am requiring them to be is not being met. So my understanding of myself is not fully clear, right? So am I creating the right thoughts around this? Am I creating the right emotions around this? So the conscious mind is creating thoughts and emotions that do not serve you in bringing solution into this situation, right?
Right.
Yeah. So give me a thought that would help create balance again, bring balance in your relationship with this other individual. And the only thing that we can control is the way we cause within ourselves and then how we respond to another person, right? So give me an idea, give me one example of a thought that you can create in order to redirect your energy in a way that is more soul conscious.
I have
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a situation, the kids nowadays, they stay on their phone late night. They don't wake up in the morning. They wake up very late. So I have that situation. So how do I think, what is the positive thought for that?
Yeah, so I'll both of them. Actually, both of them are very similar, actually. Both of them are very similar because who is being disturbed in your situation?
Us.
Myself.
Right?
Yeah, so both of you are being disturbed right now. Okay, so first of all, Can you control the child or the friend or the individual?
No.
No. Okay, so very simple. Now we
No.
understand that we can't control them. So therefore, what can we control?
Ourselves.
We can control our thoughts about the situation. We can control the emotions in the situation.
Yeah,
And we
but how can you replace that thought? You know,
so I'm gonna get there. So how do I replace? First of all, I have to remember who I am. I am an individual who is playing a certain role in the world. So regardless of who's in front of me, I need to remember to be accepting that whatever that other person's doing is what they're doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's first step. Second, how can I direct them, okay, by example. So at a certain level, you just have to let go of what the other person is doing and actually just allow them to play out their cycle of whatever it is that they're going to decide. But what you can do is create a new cycle of relationship with them. So I will do my best to educate my children in the way I'm going to advise them that this is what needs to be done. Okay, and I'm going to advise them and also create the environment for them to reflect upon it. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So it's all creativity at this point. So, and then in the other situation, I, the individual, will be accepting of anybody who is doing whatever they're doing, right? Accepting does not mean that you agree with it. It just means that you're looking at it, you're looking at the facts just the way they are without judging it right or wrong. You're just looking at it and seeing it for what it is. It is what it is. And then now you're gonna bring in powers, your powers. So I'm gonna start thinking, what does this situation actually require of me? So it requires patience to understand that people will not change at the speed in which I want them to, right?
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah.
So I'm going to start practicing patience with myself. So I'm going to ignite the power of patience. Yes, I accept that you're doing what you're doing, and I accept that you will change at your speed and at the time that is right for you. Okay, so right there, it's already creating calmness of the mind. You're letting it go to be at its speed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then the other thing,
So
what
what you're
else?
saying, I'm sorry, what you're saying is you're accepting the person, but you're not accepting their behavior, right?
It's not, it's you're accepting the person and you're accepting their behavior. You're not in agreement with it, right? Those are two different things. One is I'm in agreement with someone, and the other one is I accept. Accept does not mean that I agree with it. It just means that I understand that you're out of my control. This is out of my control, right? So if you keep trying to change somebody, all you're doing is you're just repeating the cycle of suffering for yourself.
Right.
And then you're going to extend the suffering for the children. So so one of the things that you can do is bring another powerful thing that we have, all of us have, is respect. I respect that the person has the capacity, just like I have the capacity, to decide for myself, right? So my mother actually had, this is a good example because my mother actually, my mom and my dad would never tell us what to do. They always said, here's my point of view. What do you think? And one of the things that was very clear to my parents is that the only way somebody learns is to learn for themselves. So they let us fall. They let us do sometimes things that they felt was really wrong. But then from that, but the only thing that we did know always was that mom and dad were there always to be loving to us and to support us no matter what happened. And that they're always there to help us move through obstacles. So trying to protect somebody from troubles sometimes can lead us into even deeper troubles. Yeah? Does that make
True.
sense?
Yes.
So at
Right.
certain, it's with respect and acceptance in place, what happens is that your motivations become different. What's going to awaken inside of you is even deeper love for the person, right? Deeper love. And so as you shower them with love, they're going to start actually shifting. Remember what in the first image of the soul, it says one soul can communicate with another soul, right? One point of light can communicate with another point of light. So if I hold beautiful space for that person, guess what? You're actually creating a beautiful space around them where they're going to be trusting. And that if they're not willing to listen to the advice that you've been giving, they may then open up to listen and really pay attention to what you're saying, to see any value in it. You see how it works? So I have to change in order for the outer world to change. So first thing I have to do is look at consciously, what kind of thoughts am I creating about myself and also about the other? What kind of feelings am I creating? Because those feelings and those thoughts are going to be felt by your environment, by the other. So we have to hold that beautiful space in order for that person to transform and to become more trusting and willing to listen and then become what you may be advising them to become, right? We can't use control or force in order to cause somebody to become beautiful. It's only through the example of beautiful that somebody might be inspired to be beautiful too. Does that make sense to both of you?
Yes, but it's just hard to control the negative emotion while you're waiting for them to change. It can take years.
So that's always the excuse, right? That's always the excuse for saying that I do not take the responsibility of my creations. So I want to encourage all of us to create a commitment that says, I am always willing and able to take full responsibility for the creations of my mind, my heart, and my being. And that is a very powerful decision to make.
Can you say that again so I can write it down?
Yes. So I give myself permission to take full responsibility for the creations of my mind, my heart, and my being. See, that becomes very important because then if the minute we begin to excuse who we are and how we're being, we cannot heal and become more powerful. We stay where we stay.
So what you're saying is, even though they're not able to change their ways, we choose to be peaceful. We choose to be happy despite their behavior. Correct?
Yeah, because their behavior and their character has nothing to do with you. That's their job. The only thing that we need to take care of is our character and our behavior. And when that's taken care of, guess what? Automatically you'll be happy, calm, and free.
I see.
Because the other won't matter, right?
Yeah, I see. Yeah. So we just need to be stable.
Exactly. That's what. So being the master of the mechanics of soul consciousness means that I understand how the system works. And then when I notice something's out of whack, then I can tighten up the screw and make it better again. So us giving ourselves permission to excuse wrong behavior is not loosening, it's not tightening up the screw. It's actually loosening up the screw even more. So the machine's going to continue to break down even further.
I'll say it again. Could you repeat the last part, please?
Yeah. So if you're looking at from the mechanics, and if you excuse whatever it is that you're being, if you constantly are creating excuses for your behavior and your personality, then what happens is instead of tightening up the screw, you're loosening up the screw and making the machine worse. right?
Oh, I see it.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is, if we lose our temper, if we're not stable, we're gonna make the situation worse.
That's right, because
Yes, okay.
you're not taking full responsibility for your
For
creation.
ourselves, for
Yeah.
myself. I
Yeah,
see.
that's all we can take care of. I am responsible for my thoughts, my feelings, and actions, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I have to be absolutely aware of how my conscious mind, and remember, these are parts of the soul. This is the anatomy of the soul. This is the part of the soul, okay? This is functionality of the soul. So the soul creates thoughts, emotions, and desires through the use of the conscious mind. So my conscious mind creates thoughts. Then my intellect discerns and decides and judges. Oh, you told me, remember belief systems? All these ideas that we've been carrying around. So whenever a thought comes to the intellect, what it does is it looks into that bag of tricks and it says, wow, you have a lot of things that you say you are. It's very confusing for me to decide what's right for you and what's wrong. So when our intellect doesn't have the right information, it becomes confused. It doesn't know what to do. But when our intellect has the right idea, so it's based on the information of I, the soul, am a peaceful being, then it's really easy for it to discern, judge, and discriminate what's right for me as a peaceful being and what's not. So the more junk that I have in that bag of tricks, in that bag of belief systems, the more confusing sometimes the situations can become, because I myself am not clear as to what is right for me and what is not. And that creates confusion. So it's important for us to understand the thoughts and then what we are telling our intellect that we are, and then so that it can give a good directive to the body in terms of the way it's going to communicate speech, right?
Mm-hmm.
And action. Because based on our decision, internal decision within the soul, we will then give a message to the body. This is what you do. It's either going to scream out with more anger, or it's going to calmly say, you know, the most important thing is that I love you and that I want to maintain my peace. Perhaps in this moment, let's give ourselves a little break and then come back when our hearts are in the right place. Right?
Yes.
So it's really becoming master of the mechanics of soul being. And by doing so, we allow harmony and balance to remain within the soul energy. And then also naturally into the body. And then naturally it goes out, because our sound, our voices are going to be communicating beautiful things, and our vibration is going to be communicating beautiful things. So very important for us to understand, the soul uses the body and its sense organs to express itself in the physical dimension. The brain does not think. Thought waves originate from the soul's conscious mind and flow into the brain to ignite the neural pathways responsible for the bodily function, expression, and healing. This is looking for consciousness in the brain is like looking in the radio for an announcer. So everybody understand that?
No.
Yes.
Looking for consciousness in the brain is like looking in the radio for the announcer. So you have a box, a radio, right? An electronic instrument, and the person's looking for the sound, the originator of the sound. The person should be in the box, right? Is the person in the box or just the voice?
Just the voice.
Yeah, so that's the idea.
Person in the box, I have.
Huh?
Person in the box.
Yeah, the person's not in the box. The person's somewhere else in a studio, and the only thing that's coming out of the box is the voice.
Voice, okay.
Yeah, so the same idea is that the soul is actually the entity that is creating the sound. So it's the soul is actually, the box becomes the human body. So the soul is causing sound to come out of the human body. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
So I think you said it very beautifully. How would we be at peace with our loved ones and kind of accept it and, give ourselves a break until our hearts are ready? That's very beautiful. Now, what if we are in that state with ourselves, not with someone else? And by that, I mean, for example, um, maybe sometimes I think that I focus too much on my career, and I kind of wake up to see that, okay, everyone else has a personal life, but I've been too much into my career. Then I look back, I think about the missed opportunities and things that I never paid attention to, and then it could feel like I have lost on some part in my life. How do we deal with that?
Yeah, so again, it comes down to understanding who you are. It's basically the same mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is when we don't understand what our priorities are and what is the sense of happiness, what actually is fulfillment. So one of the questions to ask is, what do I define as being fulfilled?
Mm.
So instead of comparing myself with others, comparing myself with what the world is telling me I should be, have I followed my heart? So instead of doing what society says is right, did I follow my heart, and was I true to myself in this journey that I've been on? And usually the answer is yes, I was. But then sometimes there's little times where we become sort of discouraged because things are not going the way we want them to go, and maybe a little slower than we would want them to go. And so what happens is that then we begin to compare ourselves. So it's a process that happens to a lot of people, especially in these moments when people are being called to reevaluate priorities, reevaluate the sense of what is important to me. So understanding the self becomes really important, and we'll go into it a little bit more, actually, giving you some more tools to work out of.
Mm-hmm.
So know
Thank you.
your ecosystem to remain clear and free. So again, just like the understanding the mechanics of how the soul works, by understanding the ecosystem of what this thing called the being is, we can then better utilize our resource, right? So understanding that I am an eternal being, a light energy, a soul, has no gender. So it's eternal, it's forever. It has no timeline. And then the body is temporal, organic matter. The body has a gender and it's temporary. It has a timeline. But when we integrate the integrated self, it integrates the energy of the soul and then the mechanics of the body. And when they're fully integrated, that's when miracles happen, actually. There's many research being done into speed healing. And speed healing actually happens when the integrated self is fully engaged. When the soul and the acknowledgement of the soul is being activated to infuse the body in a maximum way. To actually infuse the body with its force, with its life force. And through meditation, what's going to happen also is that as I connect to myself as a soul, I'm also connecting myself to divine energy, right? So I'm opening up a doorway to the divine, and that divine energy then becomes fluid within me. And then as I focus my intention, as I focus my mind into healing my body, then I can create new phenomena. Is that clear?
Yes.
Yeah, so a lot of confusion, it comes from thinking that the brain is actually doing it, and the brain is doing its part, but the originator of the healing energy, the healing force, the life force actually is the soul. That soul energy ignites the brain waves to activate and send messages that are much more alert and active. And the combination of the chemical aspect of repair, molecular repair in terms of cell repair and whatnot, is activated by the soul. And then it's also infused with life energy. So healing can happen very quickly. So in fact, this system is extraordinarily resilient. There's very little, I mean, the way the immune system even works is extraordinary. It has different layers of protection. And also, once you get to the third layer, it has a specific response mechanism to actually assure that that same infection does not occur. So there's the system that we have is actually phenomenal. And when we don't understand it, or we don't give it time to actually come to understand it, is when we get into these ideas of fear, of worries. So because we know that both we're an energy being and body being, matter being, so the way we deal with both of them is a little bit different. So eat pure foods to nurture the body. Pure foods in terms of soul consciousness would be foods, good foods, that are actually also given vibration by remembering and connecting to divine. As you give food, you prepare your food, you're actually preparing it with power. So feed your senses knowledge that will strengthen their capacity, right? And your power to remain in spiritual consciousness. So knowledge, spiritual knowledge, empowers your understanding of yourself and your spiritual self, and that actually increases your capacity to function in a way that creates balance, stability, right? So both on the body, you're going to keep the body healthy, but also you're going to nourish the soul by doing a number of different things, meditation, and also increasing the intake of knowledge, spiritual knowledge, that helps you understand the mechanics of your being. So exercise your body to keep your vehicle flexible and strong, right? And in the same way, exercise the powers of the soul to increase your inner strength and resilience. So again, ideas, if they're not fully activated, guess what? They're just ideas. So soul consciousness means to come to terms with all aspects of the self, understanding what a soul is, the form, its resources, and then also understanding how it actually activates with the body, and how these two can work together to create resilience and power, and also create realities, right? The consciousness of the soul working through the body creates vibration and creates reality. So the effort of soul consciousness is to use mind power to become neutral in the face of all good and bad that arises within the soul. Okay, so soul consciousness actually helps us to take a little distance from what's happening, because then it helps us understand, I'm not the thought, I'm not the feeling, and I'm not the situation. I'm more than that. And when we take that little distance, it helps us look at things just as they are. And because understanding yourself, it creates the neutrality required for you to remain clear. So you're no longer affected by the condition. You're no longer affected by these situations. You are remaining neutral, and then you're adding power. So soul consciousness means to become still and melt the effect of negativity that press down upon the mind as a dark shadow of ill feelings, by maintaining focus on the soul's original eternal condition of purity, peace, power, love, and bliss. And from these original eternal conditions or qualities of the soul, all other virtues come from that, right? So it gives us many tools to work with. And our work is to understand these qualities to the degree where we can call upon them at any given time. So it's up to us to create the dynamic of understanding that we can just pull out any of these powers at the right time. So we need to keep exercising it. Spiritual depletion occurs when the soul has acted against itself. So when we are not accepting towards others, then we are acting against ourselves, actually, right? So what we perceive as harm from another person is actually harm that is being created internally by ourselves onto ourselves because of incorrect thinking. So it's really understanding that pain and suffering actually is self-created, right? Because even in the most drastic of conditions, the suffering related to that occurrence is actually propagated by our own relationship to it. So we'll go into that a little bit more. But is there any questions about this? So soul consciousness is really simple. I focus on the fact that I am a soul, an eternal being that sits in the body, gives life to the body, and uses the sense organs. And when I enter silence, I enter the doorway to my power and my resources. And at the same time, I also ignite a connection with divine, which then also infuses me with further power. The inner condition of my being causes my outer reality. So that's really important for us to realize. Whatever my condition is, so if it's anger inside that I'm feeling, that's what I'm creating outwardly. So if it's worries that I'm feeling internally, then that's what I'm actually feeling the world with. So whatever's inside of me is nothing but a spice that's being added into the outer world. So be careful how you're cooking in the world, right? What kind of spices are you adding to the world by your inner being? So let's take one moment of quiet to, again, traffic control, go inward, look at what's there, and then just check, what do I do? Do you know what to do? So meditation, as I said, does anybody have anything that they would like to share that has come up for you during this little traffic control? Did anything come up in terms of questions, confusions, clarity, anything?
What happens when there is an actual danger situation, like there is a communal riot, in the street or something, and doesn't that create a correct feeling from inside you about, what's going to happen and how you're going to save yourself or react, defend yourself?
Well, I think that it depends. First of all, the question is, where are you in relationship to this occurrence, right? Are you in the middle of it? Are you at a distance from it? And then where are you internally in both situations? So if the first, as we know, the external world is chaotic and it's out of our control, right? First thing, so let's look at it from what's in control and what's out of my control. So first, we know that it's out of my control, whatever's happening outside. What is in my control is how will I be in this situation. So if I'm in the crowd, first response is, what's my intention in being in this crowd? And what's my priority? So if it's being there by accident, then the first thing that I would do is remove yourself from it, right?
Right.
Okay, so you have to be smart about things, right? Practical.
Right.
You are wearing a body, and the body has a certain sense of behavior and need. So you're going to remove the body from the situation, and then what you're going to do is, when you consider yourself in safe distance, you can actually do a miraculous thing. You can go inward into silence, contemplation, with your open eyes to become and be aware of the situation. And what you can do is actually call upon peace, call upon calm, call upon something, one of those qualities inside of you that actually is activated in that moment. If you ask yourself, what does this situation need? Not what is it, but what does this situation need in order to bring healing, right? So at any given time, no matter what the situation is, you have the capacity to go inward, become the master of yourself, and at the same time offer something, a gift to the world. Remember, my internal world affects the outer world. So I, as a soul, just by having a peaceful thought, and if it's strong and if it's committed, then what's going to happen, it can actually influence the entire crowd. Right?
Right.
Yeah. So the way I perceive myself would determine what I feel I can do. So you feel that you're a powerful being, a powerful soul, who has the capacity to call upon its nature, its qualities, peace, respect, calm, tranquility, then it will have an effect on the consciousness of every individual and also the situation. But again, practically speaking, if you're there by coincidence, then the first thing you need to do is remove yourself from danger.
Right.
Right? Practical. Does that answer the question?
Yes.
Okay. So meditation, silence, contemplation is very important for us to commit to these practices, because without them, we remain weak and we cannot heal. So during the day, even to commit for at least 10 to 15 minutes of meditation on the early morning, and then also right before you go to sleep. So it's up to us to create the kind of consciousness, kind of state. It's a commitment. It's a permission that you're giving yourself. I will give myself permission to prioritize my well-being, because I understand that when I'm well, then I can offer that wellness up to everybody around me, right? So I can offer nourishment. And constantly during the day, if you decide, this is like a mantra, this is like something that you keep in your consciousness, okay? But it's something that you feel, that you activate in terms of your being. I am a peaceful soul while in action. While you're walking, while you're speaking, it's so meditation and soul consciousness practice is an open-eyed practice, because we want to remain aware. And so you can practice it no matter what you're doing. And that's really important for us to understand. I'm having a conversation in the consciousness of I, the soul. I'm a respectful being, a patient being, a loving being. So it's up to us to play with these ideas. So always remember, root your consciousness in virtues, right? They're natural. So, and we need to understand the difference between virtues versus values. So one is the universal truth and the other one is a conditional belief, right? So one is based on spiritual knowledge, universal spiritual knowledge, and the other one is based on temporary belief systems that are conditional, right? And the thing to always remember is that we are searching for those things that already exist in us. There's a $1 trillion industry called, it's all about relationships. It's all about love. We're looking for these qualities from others. And by becoming aware of the fact that it's already in us, the search will stop. The desire will stop. Not because we don't want to experience love, it's because the love is already there and it's waiting for it to be expressed. And it's just that simple. And the more you actually activate these qualities, it's like exercising a spiritual muscle. The more I work with it, the stronger it becomes, my connection to it. My natural connection, my natural way of being becomes that my thoughts are going to be automatically emerging from the foundation of these qualities. So it's very important for us to take it serious in terms of the dynamics of what it means, I am being. Because it's not only affecting you, but it's also creating around you. When I'm weak, when I'm sad, when I am in fear, when I am worried, all those conditions are affecting your environment or affecting your relationships. When I am in distrust, it's affecting. When I am peace, when I am love, when I am purity, when I am compassion, when I am responsibility, when I am simplicity, it affects not only me, but also creates an environment around me. So, you know, in terms of the questions that emerged earlier, it's quite powerful for us to really understand that you can't always change situations. You can never change other people. The only thing you can change is yourself. And I think that's really crucial for us to understand. Because if you don't understand that, and if you don't come to work with that, what happens is you are going to constantly be distracted by the other. And you're not going to face whatever needs to be changed within yourself. And that's just going to delay your development. So the 8 powers of Raja Yoga are always available to help you in every situation and you will face in life. With self-transformation as your goal, your life will be a great journey of discovery. You will discover how to cope with every challenge and how to live well in every situation. You know, I dealt with my mother being quite ill and being told that she was going to die, and I've dealt with, I was present for September 11th and a number of other large global incidences. And the one thing that helped me get through these situations and remaining from, you know, at a point of distance was the practice of these particular powers, because they work practically. And if you look at these powers and you look at, they come out, they emerge, they're already there. They're just waiting to be ignited. And the way you ignite them is by spending time in meditation. And as you continue to work with your virtues, these powers emerge. So there's a whole array of resources within us that we can tap into if we spend time in silence. If we create the practical prioritization of our time and really give ourselves the time to go into meditation, contemplation, fill ourselves with power. So you can think of yourself as a superhero who has been given 8 powers. As you learn how to use your powers, they become stronger in you. Just like any superhero, you learn the skills, and what happens? You learn to use them at the right time, right? And at the right situations, to apply them in the right situations. Just by looking at that, can any of you give me a sense of one power that jumps out at you that says, oh, this is something I can use? Anyone?
Love all, serve all.
What is it?
Love all, serve all.
Where is that?
That means love all the people, and whenever there is a chance, then serve the people.
Ah, okay. Yeah. That could be construed as the power to cooperate, right?
Correct.
Is the ability to give attention, time, experience, and wisdom in the service of others and to work alongside them.
Right.
Right? It's beautiful. Yeah, it's beautiful. If we just kept that in our consciousness, in the way we thought, we created thoughts, and the way we created feelings.
Right.
And the way we created in the world, guess what the kind of a world it would be? A beautiful world, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Anyone else? Any of these powers that pops out? Huh?
Power of cooperation. The power of cooperation.
Yeah, the power to cooperate.
Power to withdraw.
The power to withdraw is the ability to step back and disengage from the world around you. So that is the power that we used actually in the earlier examples of where we were asked about what do I do in the situation when somebody X is doing X, and then how do I actually deal with that? Well, you use the power to withdraw, go inward, and realize what you're doing, right? So you're creating expectations of others, but now you come back to yourself and you say, oh, you know what? I have everything that I need. I am whole. Now what I can give is patience, respect, right?
Right.
So the power of withdrawal allows you to take time to witness the facts as they are and to understand how you can then offer something of yourself, of one of your virtues. Anyone else?
One example I have is that, you know, when you are having some kind of different opinions, say online or what have you, and and then someone or more than one person starts getting very angry, you know, in their arguments, insulting and all that, then I do just kind of withdraw from that kind of argument scenario, you know, and keep quiet.
Yeah, so that's another power there, that the power to pack up.
Right.
Is the ability to bring things to an end and to stop wasteful thinking.
Right.
So it's an ability for you to actually understand who you want to be and then actually decide that no matter what's being said, you're not going to go into wasteful thinking.
Right.
Right? So
because
many ways of,
sometimes we are tempted to keep on to get the last word in because of our ego, and we shouldn't do that. You know, we should say, okay, you know, I'm not going to continue such an argument or conversation.
Yeah, I think it's a very individual thing to what to do, but the more we know what is right for us in terms, if we commit to soul consciousness, if we live soul consciousness,
right,
and the world and our ability becomes very natural, right? So
right.
those the kind of thoughts won't come to us as often. Anyone else wants to add anything? So just really understanding what's in my control and what's out of my control. It becomes very important. We've gone through some of this where we understand what is in our control, what's not, right? So first taking the time to actually look at things from, it is what it is, this is what I'm facing, and then understanding, is this in my control, what's in my control in this situation? And then from there, going into the step of looking at how can I change the way I am perceiving, the way I'm listening to someone, the way I'm hearing something, the way I'm feeling about it, right? Is it anchored? Is it rooted? Okay? Am I molding it in the right way? Is it stabilized by one of my virtues, the way I took it in initially? And is it being guided in the process of me giving it meaning or creating my story about it? Is it guided by my virtues? And then as I communicate outward, has it gone through the filter of making sure that it is going to create positivity? Because all of these processes actually create a memory within our system, into the soul system, and that's what's stored as an imprint or as a memory. And those memories, when they're not fully resolved, healed, balanced, harmonized, they become disturbances that are stored away. They become just one more disturbance in that bag of tricks that we carry. So remember, the one thing that is always in your control is how you process the outer influences, events into your inner system. That's one thing that nothing can take away from you. Okay? So make sure that you're responsible and that you're molding it according to who you want to be. I am a peaceful being. I am a respectful being. I am a compassionate being. Whatever virtue pops out at you, that's where you need to ground it. Does that make sense? Any questions about this?
Could you repeat your sentence? You said whatever virtue is your strength, use it.
Yeah, so choose a virtue, always choose a virtue that is natural for you. We call it a speciality. So I am a peaceful being. I love kindness. So I work out of kindness as much as I can. So in your exercise and your experimentation, become familiar with one of those virtues that calls out to you, whether it be compassion, whether it be peace, whether it be calm, whether it be creativity, playfulness. And always root your thinking, your feelings, and your actions from that beautiful quality to start. And then from that beginning of coming from a quality, you then add the qualities that are required to stabilize and to harmonize the outer experience. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It becomes really simple. So paying attention and knowing the types of thoughts becomes important. So know the quality of your spiritual building blocks. Because if the foundation of your process is weak, it's based on fear, anger, any of those qualities, then the foundation of your building blocks will be damaged. And it always falls, it always creates problems because the building that you created cannot hold itself. It's not strong enough. Because the minute we work outside of the virtues, we are creating difficulties. And then we have to ask ourselves, why am I willing to work out of something that's going to bring harmony, that I know will bring harmony, peace of mind? And then the answer will lead you to the next step that you will need to take. So everything we need to understand what we're doing, how we're doing it, but we also very deeply need to understand the system in which we're doing it. Because if the system doesn't work, if the system is not universal and does not include every single aspect of life, not just myself, but every aspect of life, then it cannot be called universal. So understanding even the different types of thoughts is important because then it helps you activate the proper types of thoughts. So instead of using ego, anger, greed, you're using pure, powerful, positive thoughts. No attachments, right? No expectations. You're grounded in virtues and elevated principles. So you're paying attention to these principles. And so we must experiment with these ideas and build correct foundation. And thoughts are very important because they originate. So the thoughts, ideas, they become feelings, and then those feelings become actions. And then those are stored as memories. And one very easy way of understanding whether I am in the right mind is, does this thought deplete my energy? Does it create disharmony? Or does it energize me and it creates harmony and balance? Very simple things, right? Spirituality is simple, simple, simple. It's very simple because on one level, it's nothing more than just either depletion of force or increase of force. So I'm paying attention to my relationship to my thoughts and how am I creating? So take full responsibility for your creations. Become, I am master creator of solutions. Don't excuse yourself. Don't excuse your condition, because then you cannot elevate, you cannot change in the right direction. So I am the creator of my thoughts. I am responsible for the quality of my thoughts, and I have the power to change my thoughts. Keep that in mind. No one can take that away. And no condition can take that away. Even if you were incarcerated in a well in the middle of the desert, that should not take this away from you. Wherever you are, create paradise in your mind. Wherever you are, create balance, peace, because it's natural. You don't have to work on it. Just connect. Right? And hello? Can everyone hear me still?
We now hear you. We couldn't hear
Okay.
Yes.
So even understand I am the almighty authority of time. How does time? And I am the almighty authority of time at the moment, but I am realizing that I am a few minutes over time here. And so we need to be conscious of that too, because I think that there's a meditation period afterwards. So just very quickly in finishing with this, becoming the almighty authority of time, it just means that you understand the relationship of past, present, and future. The past is finished. You cannot change anything that has passed. You cannot change any of the variables of the things that occurred. But what you can do is change the relationship to that event that you've created internally. And that is where healing comes from. You change the story of how you perceived it and how you created with it, so that it then is healing, balancing, and empowering. So the present, because I am seated in my seat of self-respect, in my awareness of myself and my resources, and I am working out of those resources, then I assure that the present moment is full of peace, love, and that I'm seated in my self-respect, and that I'm creating an absolutely beautiful future. So there's nothing to worry about, ever. The future will be created by the condition of the present moment. So assure that the present moment is in the right state, in the right place.
We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Can.
Okay, so just keep your karma clean. I receive that which I give. I use spiritual knowledge based on universal truths to ground my thinking. I pay attention to my true I pay attention to my true intention in the moments. I am responsible for my thoughts, feelings, and actions. And I am ever ready.
Every day to face.
Ever, huh? I am ever ready to face the cause and effect of my being. I believe all obstacles and challenges as gifts, as they are here to elevate me. And I create my inner and outer circumstance. I always do my best. So never be harsh on yourself, judgmental, cruel to yourself. Always be loving and kind and supportive, because only then can you actually take the right steps. Give yourself the courage to take the right steps. And the last here is, it's very important for us all to understand that words are words, ideas are ideas, and that the only way to make something real is when you give that idea, that word, life. And the way to give life to the ideas is to practice them, put them into practical use. And as Mahatma Gandhi would say, be the change you wish to see in the world. And so these are some tools that will help you become the change that you need internally for yourself to make your life better, but also to create an external world that you want to experience. So going from total darkness to absolute light. So give yourself permission to be in that light and be in that power of yourself and the divine force, and also share it with the world in that way. And with that, I thank you all for staying with me, and thank you for all your ideas. Does anybody have any questions before we go very quickly?
Can we get a transcript of these things, like the 8 powers, etc., by email or something?
Yeah, I think what they've recorded this, so there's a recording of it.
Okay.
Okay. So thank you again all for coming.